The first time someone tried to turn my quiet mountain cabin into a tourist attraction, I honestly thought it was a joke like one of those hidden camera shows where a producer jumps out laughing. Turns out, it wasn't a prank. It was a retired HOA president with a clipboard and a god complex. And somehow, that clipboard nearly cost her $1 million in a year and a half of her life. I bought that cabin to disappear. Not metaphorically. I mean actually disappear. After 20 years in the fire service, 10 as captain, I was done with sirens, done with chaos, done with people yelling my name like I was the answer to every bad decision they'd ever made. I wanted quiet, the kind of quiet where the loudest sound is a branch cracking under a deer's hoof. So I found this stretch of land deep in the Tennessee side of the Appalachians, Cedar Valley, one road in, creek bridge, dense woods that swallow noise whole. I put in a gate, cameras, intercom. Not because I was paranoid, just because I liked knowing that if someone showed up, it was because I let them. The first time I saw her, she was standing outside that gate like she'd been sent by a casting director. Late 60s maybe, silver hair yanked into a tight ponytail, purple windbreaker bright enough to guide aircraft, clipboard clutched like a weapon. She pressed the intercom and said, in that brittle tone people use when they're used to being obeyed, "This is HOA personnel. We're here for scheduled trail access." Trail access to my land. I asked who she was. Cheryl Garner, president of the Brook Pine Ridge HOA. Behind her stood two hikers who looked annoyed they hadn't been served brunch yet. She told me residents had used that route for years, and she just needed me to open the gate. I told her no, politely, clearly final. Private property. No, HOA authority. Turn around. The way she scoffed like I'd insulted gravity itself. Then she looked straight into the camera and said, "We'll be reporting this," and drove off like she'd just declared war. I thought that would be the end of it. Entitled people hate hearing no, but they usually fade when reality doesn't budge. But about 30 minutes later, I heard branches snapping in the woods. Not animals sound human sounds. I went quiet, moved through the trees, and there they were, 6 people in expensive activewear lifting up a section of my fence and crawling under like they were breaking into a music festival. I didn't yell, didn't chase. I just walked back, pulled up the camera feeds, and called the sheriff. Calm voice, clear report. Trespassing. Fence damage. Documented. That's the thing about working emergency services most of your life. You learn not to explode when things go sideways. You just start building a record. The deputy showed up, watched the footage, whistled low. Said it was open and shut trespassing. Asked if I wanted charges. I said not yet, just log it. Because in my gut, I already knew this wasn't a one-time thing. People like Cheryl don't stop when they're wrong. They escalate when they're challenged. Sure enough, next day she came back. This time with reinforcements. A guy in a cheap blazer trying to sound like a lawyer, and another woman carrying maps like she was unveiling the Louisiana Purchase. They started talking about easements, community tradition, shared access, all these words designed to sound official if you don't know better. But here's the thing, I had a binder. 3 months of surveys, plats, notarized maps, boundaries measured down to the foot. Fire captains learn paperwork too, because paperwork saves you when emotions don't. I replaced my faded sign with a laminated survey and a steel plate that basically translated to, "This land is mine, legally, completely, and permanently." And that should have been the end of it. But it wasn't, because that's when the tactics changed. Instead of showing up with hikers, she started showing up with bureaucracy. Anonymous complaints about fire access. Notices about emergency route obstruction. Planning reviews about shared use history. Every envelope felt like someone trying to suffocate me with paperwork. At first it made me laugh because the irony was almost poetic. After decades responding to real emergencies, now I was being accused of endangering imaginary ones. But then I realized something. This wasn't random. It was strategic. She wasn't trying to win outright. She was trying to exhaust me. That's when I called Kate. Every battle like this needs someone who understands that rules are just weapons written in small print. Kate was that person. Calm voice, razor brain, zero patience for nonsense. She read the first notice and sighed like she'd smelled something rotten. Abusive process, she said. Not subtle. From that point on, everything became documentation. drone footage of access roads, photos of signage, brush cleared, paths graded, proof stacked like firewood. Because the truth is facts are boring, but courts love boring. Still, Cheryl kept pushing. Fake zoning reviews, petitions claiming historical trail use. I even found little blue arrows popping up in her neighborhood, pointing into my woods like breadcrumbs for the entitled. And that's when the twist hit. One morning, I found what looked like a birdhouse nailed to a tree on my east slope. Cute little wooden box. Until I opened it. Inside, HOA brochures, trail maps, my bluff marked with a red star like buried treasure. That's when it stopped feeling like harassment and started feeling organized. And then the email came from a former HOA board member who'd bailed years earlier. Said he'd seen the coverage online and couldn't stay quiet anymore. He sent internal emails. Cheryl bragging about redefining jurisdiction through community presence. Calling my land a sleeping asset. Talking about reclaiming perimeter land by slowly normalizing access. I remember sitting at my kitchen table staring at that screen, realizing this wasn't some stubborn retiree with too much time. This was a campaign. And campaigns get ended the same way fires do. You hit the root, not the smoke. So we went public. Press kits, drone footage, brochures, side-by-side comparisons of deeds versus her maps. The story spread faster than a dry hillside in August. Blogs picked it up. Local papers ran with it. Suddenly, it wasn't me versus an HOA. It was a cautionary tale about power without boundaries. And then she crossed the line she couldn't uncross. One night, security feed shows two figures walking up to my second gate. They spray-painted the camera black, left a laminated flyer taped to the steel. Scenic access route coming soon. Not a mistake. Not confusion. A declaration. That was the moment something inside me shifted. Not rage clarity. The kind you get standing in front of a burning building when you know exactly where the collapse is coming from. We filed the lawsuit. Not a slap on the wrist. A full-on legal wildfire. Trespass coordination, fraud, zoning manipulation, harassment. 50 pages of evidence. Timelines mapped like incident reports. The courtroom hearing felt less like justice and more like surgery. Slow, precise, unavoidable. Kate dismantled everything. Emails, videos, fake maps. At one point, she made Cheryl read her own promotional flyer out loud. You could hear the room turning against her word by word. And then came the final blow. A photo from 3 years earlier. Cheryl herself, outside my gate, waving a camera and laughing, saying she'd never been past the fence before. That one sentence killed the entire historic access narrative in a single breath. When the judge ruled, it was almost quiet. No drama, no speeches, just facts delivered like falling stones. My land, fully private. No historical easement. HOA campaign, deliberate misrepresentation. Damages, over $1 million. Cheryl personally liable. Jail time. 5-year ban from holding any HOA position. I didn't feel triumph right away. Mostly relief. The kind that settles in your bones slowly, like warmth after hypothermia. The real satisfaction came later. A week after the verdict, I rebuilt the gate. But this time, I added something personal. I bought an old decommissioned fire truck and parked it just behind the fence. Solar lights still flashing. And I welded a sign right in front of it. Private cabin. Not a trailhead, not a tour stop, not your damn business. Neighbors drove by and laughed. Some even stopped to shake my hand. Not because they loved me, but because everyone's afraid of the same thing deep down. Someone deciding your boundaries don't matter. And that's the part nobody tells you. The real lesson wasn't about land, it was about lines. Lines you draw, lines you defend, lines people test when they think you're too tired or too polite to push back. I spent most of my life running toward fires for strangers. But this was the first time I had to stand still and defend something that was mine. Turns out, sometimes courage isn't charging into danger. Sometimes it's refusing to move when someone tries to erase you politely. These days, the silence is back. Real silence. Wind through pine needles, creek water over stone, no drones, no flyers, no footsteps that don't belong. Just the sound I came here for in the first place. But I still think about it sometimes. About how close it came to going the other way if I'd been more tired, more distracted, more willing to compromise just to make it stop. And it makes me wonder where the line really is between community and control, between sharing and stealing, between persistence and harassment. So here's what I'm curious about. If someone slowly convinced everyone around you that what's yours should belong to everyone else, would you fight back the way I did? Or is there a point where peace is worth more than principle? I'd honestly like to know where you stand. Tell me what you think, where the line should be, and whether you've ever had to defend something that mattered more than keeping the peace.